Well, here I am, and welcome back to the Little Tiny Homestead. And today I'd like to talk to you about the layout of our property and how we actually have gardens on a slope, or maybe more precisely on the side of a hill. Oh, be careful. Oh, come on up. Come on up. Yeah, you're almost there. Good job. So I first want to say that when you do live on a hill, you need to do one of two things. You can adapt and work in harmony with the hill, or you can be constantly in combat with it. So we have chosen not to move. Now, would I ideally like a flat, sunny piece of property for gardening? It would be awesome. But this piece of property is also very pretty in so many other ways. So we have chosen not to combat it, but to work with it. So this is our hill. And if you've been watching any of my videos, you probably did notice that we are on a hill here. It doesn't look like a huge hill necessarily when you look at it like this. But can I tell you that this is an awesome sledding hill before we had all the chicken coop and all of that when our kids were young. But you can see here, just as you look from the garage there, going down, that's pretty much the grade it is the entire way. So I have 5 ways that we garden that I'd like to share with you, and that it works on a hill. And our very first one is this, a foundation garden. This was our very first garden, and it is has lots of different vegetables and so forth in it. If you plant a foundation garden, you're most likely going to have a somewhat flat area to grow things because it's next to the foundation. Very unlikely that it's going to be on much of a slope right there. So this garden has worked very well for us. You can see we've changed it up, but we have often grown lettuce in here, and usually also our cherry tomatoes, and we have some Swiss chard. That was so cool. Hummingbird just went by. Number 2 would be either planting at the top of the hill or the bottom of the hill. Our top of the hill and bottom of the hill is very distinct. This is the top, and you can see we are actually very close to the road. This is actually an 1840s, 1850s log home. We, of course, sited it. And, of course, you built your house close to the road. It was much easier to get around, and it obviously wasn't this kind of a road. But because of this, it is somewhat flat up here, and you can see we have foundation plantings here. But you can see our front yard, what there is of it, is fairly, at least in comparison, fairly flat. This is where we put our greenhouse. Although my husband did have to dig out a little bit to get it flat. But you can see the top of the hill. This garden is at the top of our property, the top of the hill, so to speak. And so it is relatively flat, as you can see. This one happens to be a somewhat raised bed. Here's a better look at that top of the hill bed. Okay, so likewise, here we are at the bottom of the hill, or close to it. This is almost to the bottom. There's a creek down in there beyond that brush. And then it goes uphill again, up towards the neighbor's cornfield. Actually, that's a cattle field now. But this is where we also put our tiny house because of the relative flatness of it. But as you can see, looking uphill beyond the chicken run, So you can have gardens, possibly, on the bottom where it might be a little bit flatter. And we do have our extra tomatoes over there where those sticks are, relatively flat. But it doesn't take long for the slope to begin. So number three is cutting into the side of the hill to make a level raised bed. Okay, so here we are at the steepest part of the hill, and I'm going to use this bed as an example of what we call a raised bed cut into the hillside. This happens to house our peppers, and we also have a bunch of nasturtiums in here. We do a lot with repurposed materials, and this is no exception. This one has metal and also some wood. There is another garden up there that you can see just beyond my puppy dog, and that has the tomatoes in it. That is all wood. But what he did was he cut into the hillside to basically make a level garden. This does take some work because you have to, of course, dig part of it out, but it might be worth it if you want all level beds. So this is number 4. This potato bed is an example of just working with the slope, working with the hillside. No raised bed, no cutting out of the hillside, just simply putting this garden on a slope. You might be wondering, how does that work? Won't it wash away? And there is a danger in that, of course. We did put a little bit of a layer, or I guess you'd call it a row of bricks there that would prevent the soil initially from going down the hill. Although it seems like it would wash away, surprisingly, it didn't. And the potatoes seem to be very happy here. And number 5 is container gardening. That's the 5th way that we garden here on our interesting terrain. And this happens to be a green stalk. It's here on the deck, which we hope is relatively level. So you can have a container garden anywhere. It's a great way if you don't want to mess with some of the other methods that I just covered. So I hope that was somewhat helpful for you if you happen to have a terrain on a hillside or some places uneven. There is a way to garden anywhere you live. And we've talked about that before. If you live in an apartment, if you live on a hill, whatever. So keep gardening. You won't be sorry. If you want to grow your own food, you can do it. And until I see you next time, stay rooted. Bye-bye.